What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today we've got another roundup of several Destiny 2 related topics, a few things recently found inside the game, as well as some miscellaneous bits of news. We're going to be looking at an update to this Rumble mode, which we know is in the game, which almost confirms is going to be coming soon. We'll also be talking about a hidden map, some Crimson Days exotics, and a few other random bits of news as well. So, as usual, several topics to cover in this one video. So let's begin talking about an update to this Rumble mode, which we know exists inside Destiny 2. If you missed it, I did talk in detail in a video a few weeks back how Rumble as a Crucible mode was actually added into the game with the Curse of Osiris DLC. It was added alongside Mayhem, which at the time we didn't know was returning, but of course did, and also Elimination, which was found with them as well. It was discovered in the game files by Destiny Trials Report, who of course are a very reliable source, and as I previously said, the fact Mayhem and Rumble were found at the same time before we knew about Mayhem, it's safe to assume Rumble is also going to be added soon. So the reason I bring this up is because there has been an update to the Rumble mode in a patch in the past few weeks. So Rumble now shows up as an item inside the API, the same way all the other modes like Clash and Control are in there, Rumble is too, and with a new description. So it reads, face your fellow Guardians in open combat, prove your worth and you will be rewarded. So we know it's not just left over from Destiny 1, it is a new separate mode that's only just been added, and the description is different to how it was back in Destiny 1, which used to be pure combat. Your only job is to make sure you're still standing when the dust settles, Lord Shax, kill everything, watch your back. So this one found in Destiny 2 is definitely new and different to the original one, and it's even more evidence it's a real mode on the way and not just some leftover scrapped code from the first game. Now, in terms of official announcements, Bungie haven't actually said anything about Rumble at all. They never once said or even hinted it would return. They obviously know how many people do want it, but they haven't ever confirmed it just yet. So there's no ETA. We don't know how it's going to be added. They also didn't announce Mayhem would return either until they detailed it in that Dawning blog post. So it was a sort of surprise. I'd imagine they're probably going to do a similar thing with Rumble in a similar fashion, but maybe this time they'll do it with Crimson Days, which of course is another live event, also coming most likely in a month. But there you go, that is everything we know about Rumble and an update to the mode, which is pretty interesting. I think the sooner it's added, definitely the better. I mean, I have no idea how this game doesn't have a free-for-all mode yet. It's the most basic thing for a shooter game, so it needs to be added ASAP. And also, not just be a temporary mode that disappears after a few weeks. That would be really disappointing, but Mayhem is a bit different. I think Rumble would be a staple mode, so hopefully we get some news about it soon. And of course, if we do, I will let you guys know inside a video, so stay tuned. So I mentioned Crimson Days. Now, the reason we know this event is actually most likely happening for Destiny 2 is because there are some items in-game right now that correspond to it, some new exotic ornaments actually. So I showed these off a while ago, and seeing as they were added alongside a bunch of other Dawning items, I guess they would be in the Dawning, but if you look closer, the icon is actually a bit different, and this is the same icon or logo, and these are actually related to that event, of course. I don't think this is an accident or some leftover items. They wouldn't put the icon on these exotics if they weren't planning on having the event, so it will be interesting to see what they do with Crimson Days. If you're new to Destiny, then Crimson Days is basically a Valentine's Day themed event, so it will be going live in around a month from now. Previously, it hasn't been very well liked in the community. It's been definitely the least popular, I would say, of all the Destiny events. It was just never really that exciting. There wasn't much to do. Obviously, it's themed around Valentine's Day, so there was a doubles mode, which initially came when your partner died. You would get this buff that overpowered you. So it was a very strange mode. It kind of worked, but kind of didn't at the same time. But when it came out, it was the height of skill-based matchmaking, and also Thorn and Firebolt. So it's very, very broken. There was no light level requirement. So at the time it came out, was not very popular. It was a very strange mode and definitely not as well liked as things like the Dawning or the April update, things like that. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see how, if they still plan on putting it in the game, especially with the current amount of backlash towards Eververse. I can't really imagine them just plopping another Crimson Days exactly like I've seen before. I don't think it would go down too well. So I'm really interested to see if they cancel it or change it entirely. But obviously looking at these ornaments, we know is going to involve Eververse as expected. Either way though, we have Prism for the Prometheus Lens, Corinna Nebula for the Graviton Lance, Diesel Punk for the Wardcliff Coil, and Go About Your Business for the Sweet Business Auto Rifle. So those are at least 4 new exotic ornaments that have the Crimson Days logos on them. So next up, there is also a classified Crucible map inside the game, currently hidden from view. As with all classified items, it says keep it secret, keep it safe. This is when Bungie hide things that are time gated or have some special way of unlocking. But seeing as it is a Crucible map, it is most likely time gated for whenever they want to set it live, which we have already seen 3 times for Destiny 2. We had Eternity, which was released for Trials 9, also Emperor's Respite, the one on Leviathan, which was added when the raid went live, and also, of course, Distant Shore, the Shores of Time remake, which was released when Iron Banner first came out. So they seem to have a habit of releasing these new secret maps alongside events, which we didn't see for the Dawning, but I guess Mayhem was the main Crucible thing. On top of that, the Bungie live team did say on stream at the TwitchCon event how they do like the idea of randomly dropping new maps alongside events, and they plan on doing it more in Season 2, so it's safe to assume this new map is going to be with some kind of event. Now, this is just me guessing, but it is possible that this could tie into the two previous things we've just mentioned, being Crimson Days and also Rumble. So Crimson Days is, of course, a Crucible-focused event, so this could be when they plan on adding Rumble, and this map could be also a Rumble-specialized map, maybe even a remake of a Destiny 1 Rumble map, which I would love personally. I mean, like I've said before, I don't actually like when they reskin or bring back anything from Destiny 1, especially not the exotics. But Crucible maps I don't mind, because Destiny 1 has a lot of really good maps, which I wish were in this game. So the more maps in general, I think the better in my opinion. I think the Shores of Time remake is really good personally, so I don't mind when some of the best Destiny 1 maps come back. But obviously those exotics and reskins I'm not a fan of personally. But either way, there is a hidden Crucible map right now inside the game that's most likely going to be accompanying some kind of event. My speculation is that it could be related to Rumble and also Crimson Days, but that's just my pure guessing. Of course, let me know your thoughts down below inside the comment section. So next up, I want to mention something small that was recently said on Twitter by Christopher Barrett from Bungie, and he gave a bit of insight into what kind of blog posts we're going to be seeing going live next week. Of course, this is when we know Bungie are back from holidays and they're going to be detailing the next update and what they plan on doing based on community feedback. So Chris said, working on a development update for everyone next week, lots of good info to share. So it seems it isn't going to be your standard "we're listening, stuff is coming" post, but actually a full-on development update. The last time we got one of those was actually that huge State of Destiny post in December that laid out the December and January updates, and that was definitely a massive turning point for Bungie, showing how they plan on addressing community feedback, mainly at the time which was about endgame, but these days it has definitely shifted a lot more towards Eververse and about content. So thankfully it is going to be a fairly large development update coming next week, and not just your standard vague "this week at Bungie" post. And based on what Chris said weeks ago, they're also going to be addressing Eververse 2, which is very telling. I think rightfully so, that is the biggest topic right now beyond endgame and other stuff like that. So I think everyone's very much interested to see what they have to say on this. And of course, I'll be summarizing it and going over all the info they post on this channel, so stay tuned. Now, something else also Bungie related that's been a big topic of discussion recently is they're hiring a new head of narrative development, which is, to put simply, someone in charge of where the story is going. Now, this would most likely be for Destiny 3 or something later down the line for Destiny 2, but most likely something far in the future, because in game development, the very first thing they think of is the story, and they map out where it's going before they start making stuff. So things like the second expansion, for example, Gods of Mars, that would have been probably written years ago, it's way done by now, and even the September expansion is probably written as well, based on those Savathûn hints inside the game. So the next big undertaking would of course be either more DLCs next year, or even Destiny 3, which of course in theory would be starting development right around now. So the main thing people have been talking about with this job listing is if they might be changing the entire direction of the story. This is something we've seen countless times in Destiny 1 and 2, how they always reboot and kind of change the directions of the story. So it could be evidence they're either switching things up completely for Destiny 2 or just simply beginning work on Destiny 3, but it's definitely interesting nonetheless. I feel like while the Destiny story, which used to be non-existent, has definitely come a long way, but at the same time it hasn't been properly realized where it could be. I think there are so many cool stories inside the lore which just aren't inside the game. It makes me wonder if they ever will be, just because of the kind of game Destiny is. So this new head of the story at Bungie could be something drastic, but as always, do let me know your thoughts down below in the comments of this job listing. Definitely been widely discussed recently, and I want to know your thoughts on it. So moving on, let's talk about those weird dawning gifts that I mentioned in my latest video. I realized the event is pretty much over, so it's not massively helpful, but I did say I would update you guys when I found out more info, which I did. So thanks to you guys in the comments of my last video, I can let the rest of you know what's up with those schematics automatically completing. So I mentioned how when you collect a bunch of these schematics, eventually the game is just going to give you the loot automatically when you walk up to them, and you don't even have to do the quest at all. It just gives you the stuff for free, as you can see right here in the gameplay. So the reason this happens is because you've picked up a schematic for every NPC that's available in these quest lines. So there are 12 in total for mostly vendors in the tower and the 4 planetary NPCs as well. But what happens is that collecting and owning each of those schematics is going to cause you to just get the free stuff and no longer have to do their quests anymore. That's how it's done. Now, it's worth noting you don't actually have to complete all of those quests and do all 12 and give the gifts to those vendors. You just need to have them and pick them up in your inventory across all your characters. So that's how it works. Obviously, you can complete some of them, but holding them as well does count too. So once you've done that for all 12 of the vendors, all 12 gifts, you either have them or have completed them, it's going to start giving the loot automatically. So there you go, definitely a very strange mechanic, but if you were wondering why it happens, then there is your answer. And I believe dismantling them for vendors you haven't done yet will cancel it. So make sure you hold on to any if you haven't done their vendors' quest. But there you go, mystery solved, thanks to you guys in the comments. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this Destiny 2 roundup of several bits of info. If you did, then like ratings down below would always be much appreciated. Gonna have some pretty cool videos coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. And of course, there's going to be a bunch of blog posts and news coming out next week as well. So there is going to be quite a lot to cover. So stay tuned for those videos. And of course, in the meantime, you can click the image on screen right now to watch my latest Destiny 2 video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next one.